Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks to first for the organizers for this nice conference and for letting me talk here. And today I'll be showing you about some new preliminary results of the KZ effect using ACT and DESI. And this is work done in collaboration with these collaborators, where apart from Boriana, most of them are here. So please feel free to chat with her. And I think Bernie has a nice poster that you can check. Yeah, so I think thanks to the nice introductions, I can skip most of my slides. In fact, I skip all of them. All right, so we know that the CMB contains a lot of rich information, and in fact, as the CMB travels like 13 billion years, it can pick up like a scattering effect, so it can be sensitive to this abundance of electrons. And as many of you have seen this plot, this scattering effect is basically the same photons scatters against like moving electron clouds, and they are Doppler scattered as they pass through our telescopes. And in fact, this is sensitive to both these kind of large-scale velocities and also this number density of the electrons, which is sensitive to baryonic physics. And I'm kind of mostly focused on this part of the talk. Yeah, so what is this kind of KSM effect in more detail? I really like this toy model from maths, where essentially what we measure is kind of this 3-point function like TGG, because of these kind of large-scale velocities modulating the CMB, and then there's like a correlation on the small-scale electron densities. So for this kind of measurement, we always need kind of the CMB, the galaxies, and the reconstructed velocities. I think, in fact, it's worth reminding that that basically yesterday we saw these kind of velocity reconstructions, and now I'm going to talk about these kind of stacking measurements. And they're basically the same thing under the hood. There are always these kind of TGG measurements. They're just taking different handles of this 3-point function. Yeah, so the data that I'm using is kind of CMB data from ACT. So taking these kind of harmonic RLC measurements at 90, 150, and 220 gigahertz. And this has a very nice 1.6 augmented beam and covers like around 30% of the sky. And for this set of measurements, we are using the DESI DR2 samples. So we have the luminous red galaxies that covers a redshift range from 0.4 to 1.1. And also in this kind of set of analysis, we're including the BGS sample and the emission galaxies. So here is kind of the overlapping footprint between DESI and ACT, and that constitutes like 12% of the sky. And I think a nice point of this analysis is that we are really having this huge level arm, both in terms of the redshift coverage, going from like the low redshift from the BGS to up to 1.7 with the ELGs, as well as a range in mass. So this is a very exciting program in terms of the measurements that we are making, and in terms of different types of galaxies as well. So like the ELGs are kind of lower mass star-forming galaxies, and the BGS are like more extended in redshift and also in mass, and the LRGs are kind of sitting in between. So this is kind of very exciting data set. And because we're interested in kind of the baryonic side of things, we need to get a handle in the velocities, and we get these velocities using these linear continuity equations in the same formalism as for the BAO analysis. So this is kind of the same velocities we get from the DR2 velocities, and this is like the 3D. You can kind of see these kind of velocity fields that we use for these galaxies. So how do we do the measurement? I think Lourdes already gave an overview. We do this kind of first, this is kind of CAP estimator, where essentially we weight the cutouts of the velocities at the position of the galaxies by this velocity. Otherwise, it's naive stacking. Without velocity weighting, it will give you 0, because by symmetry, there's like an equal number of objects moving towards and away from us. And we have a normalization that depends on how good we capture these kind of reconstructed velocities. And finally, these kind of weighted stacks are applied by this CAP filter, which kind of helps to remove the noise from the CMB. And this is kind of the real space estimator that we use. And here is some of our measurements. So here I'm showing this cumulative stacking without applying the cap estimator. So you can see that our signal sits nicely in the middle with some background CMB noise. You can see already that it's quite extended. So here I'm showing both the virial radius for this LRG sample and the beam size. So it's kind of nicely extended beyond the virial radius. And hopefully it's a very clear signal. So this is, in fact, the most precise measurements done with the LRG sample to date at 18 sigma. And we also have equivalent measurements for now for the BGS and the ELGs now making significant detections at 7 and 9 sigma. So here is kind of here is the cumulative plot of these samples stacking across on the arc minutes. And the amplitude shows the strength of this phase signal, while the radial, the shapes tells you kind of the radial extent of these measurements. But perhaps a more useful way to plot this, given that these samples extend kind of different redshifts, a better comparison is in fact using the proper radius of the measurements. And now, in fact, you can see kind of the differences in the profiles due to the fact they came from these galaxy samples with different masses and different redshifts. So some interesting thing is, for example, if you look at the amplitude, the ELG is lower, given that these are coming from like more lower mass halos compared to the BGS or the ELGs or the LRGs, and they are flatter in profile, suggesting this kind of lower mass systems are more efficient in pushing gas. So this is a nice interpretation we can make here. In the remaining few minutes, I'll show that we also have kind of new estimators. So this is again the toy model. But in fact, we can actually see this in the data itself. So you can see this kind of large-scale correlations of the large-scale modulations of the velocities. Here is the underlying galaxy sample. So in this kind of alternative measurement, what we do is explicitly build this momentum template based on the galaxy positions and the velocities. And this is kind of motivated by the fact that this kind of real space stacking on large scales tend to be quite correlated. So it's hard to do chi-by, and that's a lot of the other cross-correlation measurements are done in harmonic space. So these will be easier to interpret the results and also seamlessly plug into this kind of new analysis. So once we build this template, we can just cross-correlate the temperature and this momentum field, and we achieve similar measurements, given that they are essentially the same kind of estimator. So here we can see this harmonic space analysis across the across 3 redshift beams, and this is a combined measurement. I think one thing interesting to notice is the plot here. This is a prediction based on like the Battaglia profile. So this is like a CLGE, and you can see that our measurement is like almost like a third time lower, and this is consistent with the BV values found in this analysis, like Selim and Edmond presented. So with this kind of measurements, we can then map the halo gas connections and then compare it directly with like theoretical outputs, so that we can feed for some GNFW profiles that can be useful for benchmarking hydrogenes and understanding better these gas properties. Yeah, so with this, I think I'll just leave it with the conclusion. So we are having this kind of new measurements of the Kaiser effect across a wide range of galaxies and redshifts and masses. And we are working towards the full interpretation of these results. And we can now split in across redshift and different masses. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you to go back to your plot with the profiles for the different galaxy types, BGS? And
Yeah.
so here, you were interpreting this as the ELGs have a lower, because of lower mass. What was your comment about this? This is an interesting plot.
Yeah, so I think one, like the amplitude basically scales as kind of the how, what's your density of electrons, and that kind of scales with the halo mass of your sample. And
okay, because I presume the BGS has a lower mass than the LRGs, which is going the other direction. I'm not trying to trap you. This plot is really interesting. Okay, I think there's a lot.
Indeed, but also if you have a distribution, it's not only about the mean mass, given that this scales approximately with mass. If you have some really massive objects that are not masked in our CMB map, that could enhance the signal. So it's proportional to mass, and if you have a few objects that are really, really massive, that can drown the signal. So
right.
Yeah, it's the distribution needs to be better understood.
Agreed, but I mean, I can propose a different proposition, is that the bright galaxy sample is more representative of the average galaxy population, or maybe AGN feedback is not as important.
That could be also in principle, yes.
Yeah, but for example, yeah, I think another point is, like, for example, like in this kind of halo mass proxy, for example, so we have the BGS sitting kind of have a broader distribution, for example, compared to the ELGs, which is like a lower stellar mass range.
Hi, I'm relieved that I didn't hallucinate this parameter R for, in some papers I try to read about KSZ. So it really exists, and you need to actually, multiplicatively apply it. How well do you know it? What's the systematic uncertainty on it? Is it 10%, 1%, 1 per mil? How do you even go about knowing it? I mean, I just don't know. I just need to learn, like grad student. Explain it to a new grad student, how you get R.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, so we do need to know R, and in fact, in our measurements, we have been quite careful in calling the scaling R over R fiducial. And I think for the combined sample, we have a very good understanding of where it's coming from, like based on the same kind of simulation where we can really check how, like for the full light cone, we can check how well our reconstruction matches with the true halo velocities. And I think for most of the samples, we know that better than 10%. But yes, so if we split the sample, I think we need to be more careful, but I think we're doing checks, ongoing checks for that, yes. Actually, Frank already asked.
Frank? Hi. Yes. So congrats on the very nice results. I was wondering, is there any drawback of the harmonic space approach compared to the usual configuration space approach? And is there any degeneracy between the R parameter and the profile you infer from harmonic space? Like there was this equation you showed towards the end.
I think I didn't catch the second part.
Is there any drawback of the harmonic space approach compared to the standard, like
yeah, so first question, I don't think there is any drawback, so there are a few more benefits. So first of all, these two estimators should be absolutely equivalent, and we should get the same signal noise from them, and that's what we've shown. And I think we also have similar results showing that they are consistent with each other. The reason we do this kind of measurement is probably in this kind of cross-correlation community, we're more used to these harmonic results, so probably that's an advantage, and it's like easier to see decoupled band powers between them. Yeah. But I think they are useful in both senses. So we might want to check the real space profile, and also this kind of harmonic space kind of easy to plug into other analysis as well. Yeah. Do you have another question? Okay.
Yeah, here. That's super nice, super cool measurements. Coming back to the velocity reconstruction thing, so for now you multiply by this R that changes the overall amplitude. But do you have you checked whether the velocity reconstruction and having a better or worse one, whether it impacts the shape of the profile, or because I guess it may, right? I don't know how much, but.
Sorry, you mean whether we change R, what happens to our interpretation, or?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, if you have like a better reconstruction of velocities or worse, whether that, other than changing the overall amplitude, whether it changes the profile, the shape.
I think this is purely like a multiplicative factor at the moment, and it just changes the amplitude. And so there's some degeneracy with the amplitude of the signal, but in terms of the shape, I think we have a good understanding of how the shape affects. But for the interpretation, I think we need both amplitude and shape for making nice measurements, nice interpretations. Yeah.
Okay, let's thank all speakers again and head out for group photo.